Well, indeed, it is time to have our every Tuesday early morning business chat. And today we are talking about, it's been named different things: business incubation, virtual business, office space business, whatever you want to call it. We're talking about enabling small enterprises get mainstream, enabling small enterprises have facility for their business, and not just physical facility, but also capacity building and just be in the right frame of mind to transact and carry out business. And in studio, I'm joined by Alex Andrews, who's the Executive Director at Eden Square Business Center. I got that right?
You got that right.
And of course, the passionate Jerry Rionge, who's the Chief Executive Officer at Ignite Consult. Karibu sana. Thank you. It's been called business incubation, virtual business. What do you want to call it?
Well, we call our business serviced and virtual office business. We don't. Incubation is slightly different, and Jerry will talk more about that because that's more what her business is doing. Yes. We basically provide space to various different companies, from big multinational companies. We've provided for General Electric and Ericsson and Rockefeller and various, to smaller entrepreneurial companies. And the idea being that we provide a platform where it makes it much easier for people to invest. So you've got not only the big companies who are looking to come in, and they don't, in the initial stages of their of entering into the market, they don't know really what they want. They're not sure how much space they'll need, where they want to be, etc. So you provide them a very easy way in to begin to build their business within the, well, in our case now, the East African community, but within Kenya. And then we have a serviced office is basically where you actually have a physical office of your own. And then the other side is the virtual office, where we provide all the business services that you need to get a business going. There's meeting rooms, there's access to internet, there's photocopying, there's everything you need.
Do you get a PA?
What?
Do you get a PA?
You get a PA. You can help. You can certainly. We have what we call office assistants.
Yes.
So office assistants will make you coffee. They'll do your photocopying for you. They'll do more or less what you ask them to do, and give whatever help is needed. So yeah. So that really fits better for the entrepreneur, and it's a very. I think a lot of mistakes are made by entrepreneurs when they first start in terms of investing.
Just before we even get to the mistakes, why would multinationals want this service instead of, hey, they have all the money, they can just come and set up their own from scratch?
Well, one, it takes time. I mean, when you first, you've got to sign it, you've got to go through the whole process of signing a lease. Yes. You've got to have a 6-year lease. You don't really know how many people you're going to need. There's various hurdles you've got to go through. Now, where are you going to base yourself? Well, those hurdles are there. You need good communication. You need somewhere to meet with the various different people that you're going to be doing business with. You need, you need a space and all the facilities to do business while you're working out exactly what you need. I mean, you can't just come in. It's not as easy as all that to set up an office.
It looks easy to say, I'll walk into Kenya, I want to set up business in Kenya, I'll walk into ESBC and I'll get facility. But from the onlooker's point of view, it looks like getting your kind of facility. I wanted to use the word hire, but I'm not sure if it's appropriate for that. Getting this service, is it more expensive than just setting up from the beginning? I mean, if you're going to provide internet and telephone and a PA and the deco and everything and furniture, isn't it more expensive than just setting up my own?
I think it's extremely efficient. I mean, at the end of the day, particularly when you're first starting, you've got to focus on what you're trying to achieve in that market. I mean, you're moving into a new market. There's many, many, many different things you've got to think about. And I think the last thing you want to be doing is worrying about how you administer your office. And therefore, I think it's extremely efficient for them. I think in terms of cost, when you talk about, Kenyan entrepreneurs, of which, we're seeing, many, many people coming back into the country, people who have already been here, who are beginning to set up their business. The last thing they want to do is spend their money setting up an office. They need to use that money to market their product, to make people aware of what they're doing before they invest in. And our virtual office product is less than $100. So I think on a monthly basis, that's an incredibly cheap way to be able to have an efficient business support network. So I think it's extremely efficient, and I think anyone starting a business should be focusing on their core business, not on administering an office.
All right, let's just bring Jerry to the conversation. You do something similar, but how different is what you do from what Alex does?
Actually, what we do is different because we focus more on the incubation. For us, incubation is where we're looking at a startup that's an entrepreneur who's starting from scratch, or we're looking at a company that's actually working on a project. And a lot of times, companies working on a project don't always successfully take care of all the core elements of a project within the existing core. There's a lot of interruption. So we have an opportunity to host a group of people or a person who's starting on a project or a new company, and beyond hosting them in terms of giving them a space, we have support services. So we're able to create capacity for launching a market, developing the back end of a system from a technology perspective, creating the enabling support services that a project or a business would need. Now, this is from a technical standpoint, more than it would be administering a service. Because now, from a mobile perspective, a lot of the companies really can handle their own telephony when we're looking at project from that standpoint.
Right.
So I think we come in really to build capacity and to offer services in the back of. So you could actually have an existing office, but you really now are working on a project and you're bringing consultants on board, you're bringing a whole host of new resources to manage this project or to build a product or service.
Yes.
And so you need to actually pull away from your existing environment, and then we actually will host you then. So that's the incubation.
Both these two ideas are fairly new in Kenya, not more than 10 years going back. How do we compare with the region in terms of this business model?
First of all, for incubation, in the manner that I describe it, when you're looking at the East African community, assuming and that's what you're referring to, this is fairly new. This is definitely a new environment, a new niche market. It requires that we also continue to talk about it so people really understand what it is. But we have already had people come in for periods of even 3 weeks, 3 months. Some people have been there for 6 months. They do what they need to do and they go. So we are already experiencing people who actually understand what the environment is used for, and they come in and they do what they need to do. In some cases, you have people coming in with their infrastructure and actually docking it at this on-site, and then pulling it away when they're ready to go. And this is when we're talking about desktops. But in most cases, most people are actually mobile. So you're using the services as a mobile environment, and it gives you a very good creative environment to actually work in, and you can piggyback on the networking as well as the resources that we have within the lounge, the business lounge.
Sure. Now, coming back to Alex, of course, multinationals are streaming into Kenya. GE, Samsung, Set Shop, everyone is just getting into Kenya. But then we also have a need in the small entrepreneurs who are saying, hey, I also want to set up my own business, okay? Do you have a product for that? Because if I drive downtown and I see ESBC, what comes to mind is this posh, big money business. I am a small entrepreneur. I want to compete with the big boys. Do you have a product for me?
Absolutely. I mean, in all honesty, the business started when I was looking to set up. I had a couple of ideas that I wanted to set up, and I wanted an office and couldn't find the right environment. I mean, it's very difficult to find space in a nice environment and whatever. So I looked around and I couldn't find it here, so that's how it all really started. And the virtual office product, as I say, is less than $100 a month, but still provides you with everything that you need, because usually when you start a business, you're out on the road most of the time anyway. So we very much keep that in mind, and it's very much, in fact, Jerry was one of my very first tenants at ESBC. And we often talked about the whole idea of building capacity and helping.
Yes, it does work.
Helping smaller businesses, with some of the things like basic accounting and that kind of stuff. So we could provide more than just the space. So it's something we actually talked about many years ago. But we focus much more at this stage on actually just growing our core business, which is serviced in virtual offices. And I think the virtual office is very much for the smaller business and to encourage. And we work very hard to facilitate interaction between the smaller Kenyan entrepreneur and the bigger companies, helping them hopefully to do business with each other. We've set up a thing called ESBC Exchange, where you can put up the name of your company and all your credentials, what you do, etc., etc. And then there's an interaction. People talk to each other, discussions are started, etc. And then they begin to, hopefully they start to do business with each other. So yeah, I think we are orientated very much towards the smaller company who's growing. And one of the first things that we always say to somebody who first comes in, we find out as much as we can about their business, is don't take a serviced office which costs a lot more unless you really need it. Start with a virtual office. Build your business to a level where you need 2 or 3 people and you need a more full-time space. And then take a serviced office. Because, as I say, you don't want to be using your resources on an infrastructure you don't particularly need, when that should be used in terms of finding a market, so for your product and growing your core business. So I think we are very focused, and I'd like to do a lot more of what Jerry does, further down the line. But as I say, for now we've grown into Uganda and Tanzania, and we're focusing more on our core market.
The Kenyan practice, especially in banking, you'd be asked for a physical address or utility bills. You're trying to probably do some transaction. You're trying to make to open an account, and you're talking about a facility where I pay less than $100 a month. How does that fit in terms of practicability with the systems that are in Kenya?
I don't think. You need an address to do business, but as long as you've got an address and whatever, you can open a business. Okay. You can open a business account. So it doesn't matter how much you pay for it. People run their businesses from home. It's not how much you pay for the space that gives you the ability to open an account. Obviously, if you don't own, you can't go and get a loan on the back of
because
that space. But
what I'm shooting at is, with this business model, there's some sense of mobility that is brought about. Okay, and looking at the Kenyan practice, we have this thing about briefcase companies, and we really fear that, because really it's a con game. Okay, you don't want to get into a business with someone and then you realize, hey, his office is just his laptop. Okay, so especially now coming to Jerry with the kind of capacity you're building, how do you ensure that we're operating in a market that has these fears in our mind, and then there's this business model that is somewhat encouraging this kind of trend?
You know something? We honestly, as a society, as a people, need to come to terms with the fact that the knowledge economy is here with us. The time for people to consistently have a full-fledged office so that they can prove their credibility has really come to pass. Why do I say so? I say so because indeed they are virtual offices, they are serviced offices, and then there are people who are doing everything they do online. Now, if your entire business is actually online, it's online enabled, you're doing your transactions, you have your back office, you're able to actually virtually call back, if you like, from a customer service perspective, even into a BPO. If you're able to do all those things from a virtual perspective, really the notion of a physical location is dying away. And so we need to begin to look at different aspects of competencies or credibility metrics to determine a successful business person, a professional, or a business as a whole.
What
so the concept of just purely because I have a beautiful looking office downtown Nairobi equals that I'm capable of the delivery of services is now really
So how do you unlearn this culture of establishments? Because if I walk into Ignite Consulting, I see a big banner, I see billboards, I see a big office with a receptionist, I know I'm in the right place. I know I can put my money here. On the other hand, if I meet you at a coffee shop and you are promising to bring me business worth 100,000, I may not. So how do we unwire this kind of... yes, Alex.
Now, I was going to say, you do make an important point, and we have to be very careful that we don't we don't encourage, as you say, con artists coming in with a briefcase, being there for a month, getting a lot of people to offload a lot of money and then walking away with it. And we do take, when we have a process of onboarding, and part of that is to do some kind of background checks. Now, there's only so much you can do with the smaller company, but we do a certain amount of research into a company that we take on, because obviously the last thing we as a company, ESBC, want is to be seen as a place where...
What would you be checking for if I walk into your office today and say, I need some space?
Well, we would Google you, and it's amazing what you can find on Google. We would take a copy of your ID, if you don't have a business certificate yet or whatever, because a lot coming don't yet, but they're just at the very beginning of their curve of setting up. So we would take your personal ID. We would do those kind of things. Because, and it's not foolproof, but we've never actually, we've maybe had one situation where that has arisen. But that's in 6.5, 7 years. So we're as careful as we can be. I mean, the last thing we obviously want is for people to feel that this is not a safe environment in which to interact with companies. So we are careful about it, and I think the point you make is a very good one.
Jerry had something.
My actual point is in relation to my current experience now as a management consultant, because you realize that more and more we are very emotional decision makers.
Yes.
We're not very pragmatic, or we don't go the whole hog. If you're really about to recruit a company or a person, you must do your reference checks. You need to talk to people, and yes, you need to Google, because there's a lot you can find on the internet. But you also need to be more credible in your own process, so that the concept of just assuming that having a physical establishment equals capacity for you to deliver a good service really is not true anymore. That's not a valid statement. So I think we need to do more in terms of identifying good service providers. And so the virtual concept, or even service concept that you have at Eden Square, as I was a user of Eden Square services, is really such an excellent cushioning process for an entrepreneur. Because you begin to build your product and service instead of focusing on the mundane stuff of trying to figure out when am I going to sign off my lease for 6 years. If I do so, what if this particular business doesn't take off as I would like it to? So it gives you the flexibility to actually make common sense business decisions in the first stage of your business. And any new innovation, any new company, any new business needs to really be very frugal, or very, very open-minded in terms of their ability to launch their product. And the virtual services or the services are actually excellent for that opportunity. So I think that's really what people need to start thinking about more so than criticizing. But I actually found this guy, because I've had these comments before. I actually found this person at the virtual office, promising heaven, and they tend to think that that's a bad thing. It isn't a bad thing. It's a very smart thing to really consider organizing your business in areas that are more critical for you, and have other service providers offer you other back-end services, which is what would be happening whether you're in an incubation center or whether you're within a serviced center.
Of course, Jerry, you're a champion of IT as a business enabler. We're talking data. You just mentioned one of the things we have to check you out is, are you online? Can they find you when they Google you? And of course, this model suggests that there's a lot of data that needs to go before I come and say, hey, I want space, or can we do business? How then what position are we first as a country in terms of merging these two ideas, because they pretty much go together? Where are we, as a country, and then how much more do we need to do?
I think from an online standpoint, anybody who's setting up an innovative business or a business that is likely to show up at Eden, at the ESBC service or within my own services, is more likely someone who's already actively involved with many, many things, that equals that there would be a trend that you can actually follow online. And again, everybody's on Facebook. Most people are on LinkedIn and all the other social media platforms. So it's pretty easy nowadays to do what you'd call sentimental analysis, to try and figure out who's who in the marketplace. But beyond that, there's obviously all the other portals that you can actually access. So you can actually, if they say they are a registered company, then you can go to the company registrar's office to do a little bit of homework to figure out whether they actually have done their returns. You know, there's stuff that you can do. And then, of course, if they tell you they've worked for other customers, you can then make sure that you follow up on a background check or a reference check to see whether indeed that their promise can be supported by the referencing process.
But presumably in your case, because you're providing so much support to these companies, that you very quickly realize whether these are genuine or not.
Very quickly, as a matter of fact, because competence, your capability of even understanding your own business is the key criteria.
Yeah.
Most people who go into business sometimes just start a business because it was an idea of someone else that they thought was a good idea.
Alex, what kind of business or investments, what kind of people walk through your door and say, I want to start, I want space? What kind of sectors?
Every sector. Every sector. As I say, I mean, the way the business turned out is quite different to, like I think many people are going to business, quite different to what I expected. I mean, there's a much bigger market for it than I expected. We started with 14 offices back in 2006, and we've got somewhere around 250 now in East Africa. We didn't expect, for instance, some of the big companies like Samsung, Nokia, or whatever to be customers. We knew they had their own offices. But they have sudden needs. You know, they get a new project suddenly, they get, you know, that may only last 2 or 3 years, and suddenly they need space for 25, 30 new people who are coming in. So there's that kind of side. And then, you know, as I say, there's the guy who, I mean, a good example maybe is a very nice chap called Augusto Lico, who started Pesapal, and he had just come back from, you know, from the States and was looking to set up in outsourcing, and he stayed with us for a while. He started off as a virtual office client, and then he moved into serviced office, and then he outgrew us and has been tremendously successful. And that's obviously in the world of sort of IT outsourcing. So, I mean, you know, all sorts, and it's part of what makes it fun to be involved in this business and you know, and to run it is you come across so many different kinds of people.
Now, some bit of context here. We're just now moving into devolved governments, and the business centers in the counties may not be as developed as Nairobi or Westlands or Upper Hill. Is this service available for them, or is this a Nairobi business model?
Well,
Jerry is
in my
laughing.
case, in my case, you know, you have to say it's initially a Nairobi business model. Over time, it will be a country or county business model for sure. I'm sure there's huge opportunity in that direction, and we'll soon be seeing that as we continue to develop the government.
Alex? We've set up in Kisumu already, and we did about 2 years ago, and it's been quite slow, but we do see it changing as the county system comes in, and we're certainly not, you know, we obviously we want to see how Kisumu, you know, does develop as the county system develops, but I can see a time when we have it in many smaller cities as well. And they may be slightly different. They may not be as big. I mean, you know, even within Nairobi, we're looking at setting up smaller centres. Because the traffic is so bad, we're looking at some areas that are maybe not quite so prime. You may not get as many big clientele, but they still, people are living out in that direction. They don't want to have to go all the way back into town. And we're looking at a thing where we call it ESBC on the move. And there would be much more, you know, you can go in, you can have your meetings, you can use a hot desk and in a smart environment and do your things. But that's, if you're in any of our centres, you can just pop in. So they may be on a smaller scale. And I can see something like that happening within the counties. You know, the kind of space that we take on in Nairobi, I can't foresee in the near future anyway, taking that kind of space on in many of the regional towns and cities. But I think we'll definitely come up with a product for them, for sure. And it's very important that we do, because
but then
we need
if we don't do that, then the whole idea of devolved government units is just an idea.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no point of devolving government where there's no business in the county.
Absolutely. And we need to work closely with the county with the county's authorities to actually develop these and provide the right space. So we're definitely, as I say, working on a product that will fit that kind of environment.
Now, if you're joining us now, we are talking about business incubation. And while we may differ with Alex about the topic today, the title, we decided to call it business incubation. We're looking at a new business model that is an enabler for enterprises in the country. Remember, you can join this conversation through our SMS line 8040 or our Twitter handle at Ktn Business or even at Bonitunya, and we'll be more than glad to sample your views and comments as this live broadcast progresses. Now, Jerry, you are into capacity building. What are some of the areas that you focus on? Say, if you're targeting an entrepreneur, what are some of the areas that you need to build capacity on in Kenya right now?
There's a huge need to even provide advisory, business advisory services. A lot of people are banning their fingers in the way they formulate their contracts, be it shareholders' agreements, if they're partners in the business, any type of a structure within their own business. If you're registering a company, what type of company to register? If you're actually engaging with customers, what type of contracts do you put in place between yourself and your customer? There's also conversations around just, organizational effectiveness, organizing your business so that you're able to support your customer services as you continue to grow. And how do you actually scale the business? A lot of the entrepreneurs who come into the marketplace are doubling. They're doing all the HR, they're doing the marketing, they're doing the sales, they're doing the accounts and so forth. So it's building capacity so that we can actually take on some of their services and give them solutions in the back end. And our core area is actually offering what we'd call IT enabling services so that you can use IT tools to manage your front end. So we build online business solutions. That's basically, in most cases, people see it as a website, but really the back end of that website, there's a whole host of other services that you can run in the back of it. So you can do your social media, you can actually do your email viral marketing, you can do your marketing online for your newsletters and so on, and you can also piggyback or integrate your accounting software and systems, and you can do your workflows, your CRM, customer relationship management system. So you can do all that within the back end. So what we say is that, if you actually come and you want to work with us, we will find a way of delivering that particular service on your behalf or with you as part of the incubation model. And then we can actually in some cases even take equity for the price of the delivery of that portal, or basically we'll pay it over a period of time. But the success rate of this particular model will come in when we launch our fund. We're actually working on launching the fund, and when we actually do that, we'll have capacity and more resources to help the SMEs.
Now, are you happy with the area of regulation? Because if I'm going to set up a business, there's some number of licenses, and I think in the region, Kenya is on record having the most. You've just mentioned about matters of getting into contracts, and those are just legal matters that are basic to business, but not so basic to the common person who just wants to get into business. In regards to regulation, how are we doing? Especially your kind of business, because if I want to set up a business that I am getting space from Alex, I don't need to wait for 6 months to get my license. So how are we doing, and what needs to be done?
To be very honest, you actually can get anything done for you very expeditiously. I think the problem is that this information doesn't flow. So people don't actually know that A, they can actually go to Sharia House and register a company on their own.
Yes.
B, if you're not going to Sharia House, there are actually portals online now where you can actually use those portals to register your company. You pretty much also can go to a lawyer who will then register your company for you. But the main thing here is knowledge. There has to be a way of transferring knowledge for people who are coming into the business space, and that currently is not happening.
Alex, you operate in other markets other than Kenya?
We've just opened in Tanzania on the peninsula, and we are going to open on the 1st of August in Uganda.
How does looking at regulation still on that matter, how does it compare with Kenya?
I think Kenya is getting much better in terms of making it easier for people to set up. I mean, the Kenya Investment Authority, we've got a relationship with, and I think they try very hard. And I know some of my clients who've worked through the Kenya Investment Authority have had fantastic experiences with them in terms of having a lot of their license taken care of, you know, put in the right direction in terms of where they might find space, etc., etc. So they offer very good advice, I think, these days. Certainly, for setting up my business, we basically needed a business license, and that was pretty much it.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, when you got to go to the council when you're outfitting and approve your plans, but I think overall it's pretty good. We also, to be honest, have not had a bad experience in Uganda and Tanzania either. Yeah, I think, you know, but it could definitely improve. That's for sure. It could probably improve everywhere. But you know, and I think part of the success of Rwanda has been the fact that it's become so easy to do business, and they've made it so attractive for people to base themselves there. But I mean, we definitely, you know, see. I think certainly the bigger companies, they see the attractiveness of their investment as the East African region. And I think more and more we have to be able to provide that. And I do think some of the problems, like, you know, crossing the border, I think Kenyans working in Tanzania, they have to get work permits and things. There's things like that that have got to be sorted out. I mean, I think that the East African community working and functioning in a slightly more homogeneous way is important. I think it's you know, I think big companies certainly investing in this region, they're looking for the market of the whole region, not just one particular market. Obviously, Kenya is the biggest market, but you know, it's growing fast in Uganda. It's growing fast in Tanzania. There are huge opportunities, and you know, it would be good if some of the regulation between the countries were taken down.
Okay, great. Now, if you're joining us now, we're talking about business incubation, a new business model that basically tries to enable entrepreneurs to get mainstream. And I'm in studio with Alex Andrews from the ESBC and Jerry Rionge from Ignite Consulting. You can join the conversation via SMS line 8040 or our Twitter handle at KTN Business, and we'll be more than glad to sample some of your views. And already we've seen some. And just before we get into into SMS and all that we are doing, business model that is loose, for lack of a better word, okay? And you've mentioned of multinationals and everyone coming in. A few months ago, there was huge talk about setting up Kenya as a hub for BPOs, you know, and business process outsourcing was the sexiest business idea ever. Then infrastructure was put in place. In some instances, nothing much is taken off. What went wrong?
Was the infrastructure put in place? I don't know.
They are found.
I mean, they were looking at taking Samir Park,
yes,
because they approached us about doing a centre there. Obviously, they're looking longer term at this park in Konza.
Yes.
But I think, you know, these things take time. There's no doubt about it, they take time. And BPO is a sexy idea, but certainly in the more developed countries right now, politically, you know, they're talking about making sure that jobs are kept in country because they're suffering and unemployment is high. So, you know, it's probably, you know, certainly they're not going to talk openly. But at the end of the day, a company over time, if it can deliver its services more efficiently and cheaper by outsourcing it, they are going to do it. And I do think in the long run it's going to be a very good and big business for Kenya. But it's going to take time. And you know, the idea that it was going to happen in 6 months or 9 months or a year is clearly not the case.
So the skeptics need to give us more time.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe in it completely. I think I think Kenya will do very well. I mean, it's got such a fantastic human resource pool that I think it can only do well. And as I say, any American company, once it's died down the idea of you know, it's not good to outsource and employment has started to get better, they'll be looking to outsource.
I don't want someone in India to take care of my business when I'm in Kenya. You know, I don't want to make a call inquiring about something and the person.
But if you don't even know that you're talking to somebody in Kenya, then you don't care. If they deal with your call efficiently, and they can be empathetic towards what you're trying to say, etc., then you don't care. You have no idea.
Also, what I'm getting at is, you've talked about Konza, we've talked about Samia business, but according to the pedestrian, someone just walking across will say, hey, why did these people build such a big building and there's no business? What I'm aiming at is, are we putting the horse in front of the cattle the other way around? in putting up infrastructure where there's nothing to put up? I mean, we're building this huge pipe and there's nothing in it to pass.
You know, we are putting the cart before the horse in some cases, and I want to focus purely on capacity.
Yes.
If you're going to have a successful BPO economy, so to speak, we must therefore have successful, good, skilled competencies who are able to do business and to deliver services
Yes.
with minimal instructions. Because at the end of the day, the way we operate from a competency standpoint or even a skill mix standpoint, there is a lot of work for managers or people who are running organizations to enhance the talent pool to be self-engineered or self-innovative in their ability to actually progress agendas and items. So if you're actually going to outsource, if I'm going to give you my business, you need to have enough capacity to understand my brand value, my business, my customers, so that you can provide the same service that my own staff would provide, so to speak. To do that, there's a capacity building element that I think we're really ignoring.
In terms of specifics?
It's in terms of specifics.
What needs to be done? Looking at, let's take Konza, for example.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, we've had huge businesses show interest in Konza, but we're not yet there. Then learning from, if we are to learn from, say, Samir Business Park, what specific measures do we need to put in place?
Capacity for execution. That's critical. Ideas are great, but if you cannot execute those ideas, you then end up with a situation like the Samir Park or any other. And I think even from a BPO standpoint, I think there's a lot of emphasis on brick and mortar, when in actual fact the emphasis should be on capacity building around people and talent management and innovative ways of working.
It's what's in the head is just as
Yes.
important as what's on the ground. And I think it's right. But I think, the government, they've put this huge space aside in Konza. I think, they've obviously looked for investors. My understanding is that they've found certain investors who are willing to build there. They clearly, and I think, they're right to do it. They've got the foresight to think Kenya must become the hub of the IT industry, and they want to build an area where they can put everything. I mean, it's like a giant incubator almost, and hopefully they'll have people who are also helping build the capacity in terms of skills. But they need a place to do it as well, and they need some of the big internationals to base themselves there. And I think they're right to do it, but it does take. It is going to take time, and I hope they've thought clearly about transport to and from.
Everything. How can you help me?
That would be to me.
That would be you. He's got space already. So.
He's already got space. So
Yes.
actually what he really needs to do is take on one of our services. Everything we offer as a service is actually online, in an online catalog. One would need to go to www.insight.co.ke. And on the catalog, there are web solutions as well as online business solutions that clearly tell you what the service will offer you, and it has a price. Once you purchase it, you get the service. That's one way. The other way is to come over and we can have a consultative conversation about how he can approach that in case he has the skills to do it himself.
Great. There's another one. I guess this is for Alex. He says, someone says, I think I'm in need of an office. Where are the offices of business incubators? Kindly text me your contacts. And they say they will not be able to watch the show till the end. Well, indeed, you can contact Ktn. We'll be more than willing to give you the contacts of the guests in studio. Let me see another one. There's another question that says, Njeri, what exactly is capacity building? Because everyone talks about capacity. What exactly are we talking about?
Okay, say it simply. It's developing additional skills to make sure that you're cutting edge in the innovative aspects of how business needs to be done. So be it customer service, be it marketing, be it technology in terms of engineering, networking, whatever that area is that you're in, it's a moving target in terms of the things that you're expected to know and understand in an innovative way. So you need to consistently go back to either to school, training, or workshops or conferences that give you this added advantage in the knowledge. But most importantly, it's one thing to have a good idea and understand the concept. The other thing is competency, which is your ability to get the job done. A lot of us are very good at saying, oh, I'm great at ABCD. But if you really ask someone to put it down on paper and to actually get the job done, they struggle. So capacity building, in my case, is talking about building competency continuously. The knowledge economy will be very unforgiving when people are being pushed farther away because systems, IT enabling opportunities are coming along and you're not able to scale. So there has to be an opportunity to skill when it comes to your skill sets.
I mean, we constantly, as a business, are learning new things. I mean, we're not really a real estate business. We're a customer service business.
Yes.
We're delivering a service. And, you know, customer service is everything to us. We're beginning to... We were the first into the market, which was a great advantage. But now there are a number of other facilities out there that you can join. And we also, because we've obviously got now 6 of these centres, it's a more difficult business to manage. And with that comes an endless learning process in terms of, you know, the way that we deliver the customer service. And we put in new software. You know, we've learned that we've got to have huge redundancy within our internet. If it goes down, we've got 175 companies, you know, ringing us and shouting at us. I'm sure Jerry's done it before, but, so we have endless redundancy and things. So you learn all the time, and that's the capacity, and you learn from other people as well as obviously, hopefully, learning by just looking for yourself.
Correct. Just before I give you a chance to give your final submissions, there are 2 questions that I bet these are for Alex. One says, let me have your phone contact for further business deals. Like I said earlier, if you reach our office, we'll be able to give you Alex's contact. Then there's a final question which will go to Alex. Do you have a product for SMEs?
Yeah, I mean, I think
the broader definition of SMEs could be 100 million plus, but I mean, let's just...
It's a hugely broad definition.
Yes. Let's break it down to...
Yeah, I mean, again, it depends what kind of business you are. If you're a small business just starting up, which can still be an SME, then I would definitely say, and depending on what you're actually doing, I mean, if you're a consultancy practice, you could be a virtual office client. We have a very successful lady who I think was Eva Kippergat, who was voted one of the 20 top business ladies. She has a virtual office with us, and she runs a very successful business. But her business, a lot of it, is done in other people's offices. So, you know, it depends what kind of business you've got. But the answer is, the likelihood is, yes, we can help you. You know, there is a stage at which, when you get over a certain number of people, it probably economically doesn't make sense. We can still help you find an office, and we do help people. We help our clients move into their own offices, and we put them in touch with the right people. But, you know, up to sort of 10 people, 12 people, we can definitely help. And as I say, part of our job is to advise people on the right product, and not to take
what they need.
Not to take more than they need. Because although you may make more money for a couple of months, you may well lose them very quickly because they may find trouble paying their bills and things. So, yeah, it's one of. So yes, we can help you.
Great, Jerry. Final submission.
Mine is to say that the country is definitely moving the right direction in terms of some of the policy areas, but I think we can do better. I also believe that entrepreneurship is going to be a critical pillar for Kenya, and I believe that environments like the serviced virtual services, as well as the business lounge incubation centers and other centers, are very, very critical. So we need to continue to support the services and to encourage the opportunity for people to focus more on capability, capacity, as opposed to identifying whether there's a real physical office in my case.
All right, take us home, Alex.
Well, I think, I mean, I'd like to think that what we do is totally compatible, and that one day we'll be working together. We may well be providing the physical space, and she'll be providing the capacity, and it's something that we've already looked at in terms of working with one or two companies to provide that. I think she's absolutely right. I think they're incredibly important. And, you know, hopefully one day we may well work together, and she'll be
We need to stop
nurturing.
talking and actually do it, because we've talked about it before.
Then
It's a long time
A
ago.
long time ago.
and then I will invoice you for putting together this
Exactly.
meeting. Exactly. Well, indeed, we have been talking about business incubation, and in studio we had Alexandros from the ESBC and Jerry Ryong, and we're looking at enabling business for entrepreneurs in Kenya. Many thanks for those of you who were able to send your submissions, and of course the show, the conversation in studio may end now, but the conversation continues online, so we will proceed. And many thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for stopping by.